and welcome to another episode of Motor City Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Lee Mosrak, and as always, I want to thank everyone for joining us on the ride. We got a few things to recap today. We're going to talk about the Tigers and the rocky start to the second half of the season after the All-Star break we're currently in the midst of. Talk about the Pistons Summer League, them wrapping up Summer League here and how that looks and how that might predict the plan for next season. We're also going to talk about the Lions opening up training camp as they get ready to start the season, or at least start the preseason and the Hall of Fame game here later this month. So those are kind of the three big topics for today. But before we get started, as always, I need to let everyone know that this episode is brought to you by Grosse Pointe Spine Center, where they use non-surgical spinal decompression to treat patients suffering from chronic neck pain, chronic back pain, and sciatica caused by herniated discs, bulging discs, and degenerative disc disease. If you're in the Metro Detroit area and you're in need of pain relief, call at 313-332-0388 or go online at grossepointspinecenter.com. All right, without any further ado, let's jump into the Tigers. So tough end of the kind of the first half, I guess you could say, before the All-Star break. Tough stretch, right? When 0-4, they're on the stretch, got swept by the Mariners, lost just before that. The Tigers as a whole didn't perform great in the All-Star game. And I thought, well, at least, I'd rather have them perform badly in the All-Star game and then come out swinging against the Rangers here as we get back into regular season play. And that just hasn't been the case. 2 games so far against the Rangers, obviously a small sample size, only scored 1 run over the course of that. I think they've only had 7 hits over the course of 2 games. Lost 2-0 on Friday, lost 4-1 on Saturday. I'm recording this now on Sunday afternoon, and at least tonight we've got Tarek Skubal on the mound. ESPN Sunday Night Baseball. Hopefully Tarek acts as a nice stopper and is able to get us a win here before we head off to Pittsburgh for the next series. So kind of breaking down a couple of games for that first game on Friday, Reese Olson on the mound. I talked last episode about kind of that 3-headed monster of pitchers we've got for a playoff series, right? We've got Tarek Skubal and Casey Mize, who are both all-stars. And while Jack Flaherty has struggled a bit at times this year, we know that deep inside there is a great pitcher, right? A strikeout machine. He's going to get outs. And so I think having those 3 at the top of the rotation come playoff time is great. That puts us in a great position. And while saying that, I kind of left out Reese Olson, which was a huge mistake on my part, because Reese has been great this year. He had a little bit of an injury where he missed some time, but he's always performed above expectation, I feel, and that was no different on Friday. Gets 5 innings in there, only 2 hits, 6 strikeouts, no runs allowed. Great performance by him. You leave the game after 5 innings, not giving up a run. Can't complain about that. We know AJ likes to use the bullpen, so it's not often our starters going to get 6, 7, 8 innings in anyway. So 5 to 6 innings is probably the best we can hope for, and that's what Reese delivered. And then we get Tyler Holton and Chase Lee come in, 2 great outings. Between the 2 of them, 2 innings pitched, no hits, 3 strikeouts, no runs. So we're in great position, right? We're finishing up the 7th inning, heading into the 8th inning, bottom of the 8th. Tommy Kahnle comes in and we figure, well, he's got those bad outings out of his system. He probably figured out whatever was wrong through the All-Star break, and we're going to have beginning of the season Tommy Kahnle now for the rest of the season. And unfortunately, the bad stretch continues, right? He's out there. He gets 1, let me see here, 1 inning pitch, 2 hits, a walk, gives up 2 runs, the only 2 runs of the game. And unfortunately, the Tigers end up losing 2-0. We'll dive into Tommy Kahnle a little bit more here in a second, but quickly wrapping up the rest of that game. Offense has just got to get hits, got to score runs. As a team, we only had 4 hits that game. Torque was 2 for 3. Vierling was 1 for 2. Javi Baez was 1 for 3. The top of the lineup, so Gleyber Torres, Jahmai Jones, and Riley Green were combined 0 for 12. We really can't have that if we're going to do well. And again, I'm always going to find the positive in things, and that's what I'm doing here. Reese Olson, great game. 2 guys from the bullpen that have struggled at times this year, great outings. I love to see that. But even if Tommy Kahnle goes out there and he's old Tommy Kahnle and puts up a 0, offense still has to score runs, right? 2 runs shouldn't beat the Tigers. With the offense they've got, they were the first American League team to 400 runs. I believe right now they still have the 3rd most runs in the American League. So scoring 0 runs just isn't really acceptable for a team like the Tigers, a team that we have big hopes and dreams for going into the playoffs here in a bit. So the one thing about that game I'll say, and I'm always the first to say, AJ Hinch knows a million times more about this stuff than I do. So I'm not one to typically question managing decisions because AJ usually pushes the right buttons. The one thing I don't buy into a lot of it are the righty-lefty matchups. And in the movie Moneyball, Brad Pitt as Billy Beane says to Philip Seymour Hoffman as our how, I don't care about righty lefty. And that's maybe my favorite line in the history of a movie, or the history of a sports movie anyway, because I've always kind of felt like that too. And I know that the numbers are going to show that left-handed hitters typically don't perform well against left-handed pitchers. But at the end of the game there, we've got a runner on. We've got Colt Keith coming up to bat, who's been a phenomenal hitter, especially lately. Colt's really coming on strong. Rangers bring in a left-handed pitcher, so AJ does the switch and brings in Jake Rogers. And while I love Jake Rogers as a team guy, I just can't imagine a scenario in which typically pinch hitting Jake Rogers for Colt Keith is something I don't that the numbers would bear out. And I get you're going to go lefty righty matchups, and Jake's in Texas, his hometown. Maybe we get a nice storybook game tying home run there. But for me, I run my guys out there. My guys who are hitting right now, it's Colt Keith. And so I would have loved to have seen Colt Keith get the opportunity there to tie the game up or at least extend the game. But again, I don't make a habit out of questioning AJ Hinch because he does a lot of things that at first look like a crazy move, and they tend to work out much, much more than they don't. I always say AJ Hinch should be the runaway manager of the year last year, and he should be the runaway manager of the year this year because no one manages their ball team as much as AJ Hinch. A lot of these guys kind of roll the balls out there, so to speak. They let their guys play, and then they get a good record, so then they get considered for manager of the year. But AJ's doing work throughout the entire game, and I really respect that about him. But when it comes to those righty-lefty matchups, I really want to see our great hitters get a chance to hit, even if they are, left-handed hitter facing a left-handed pitcher. But back to Tommy Kahnle here. A real rough stretch for him, right? So in the last week or last 7 or 8, I think 8 days total, he's had 3 outings. In that three outings, he's only accumulated 1 total inning pitch, given up 8 hits, 9 runs, and he's had 0 strikeouts. That's a rough stretch. And the 3 appearances before that, he went 2 1/3 innings, 1 hit, no runs. So he had 3 great outings, followed by these 3 terrible outings we're in the midst of. Earlier in July, he had another outing that was rough too, though. No innings pitched, 4 hits, 5 earned runs. So the month of July, he's only gotten 3 1/3 innings pitched, given up 13 hits and 14 runs. That's an all-timer as far as rough stretch goes. The month of July has not been Tommy's friend. And so I know a lot of people are panicking, get him out of there. See people online saying, send him down. Tommy Kahnle's not a guy you're sending down anywhere. He just has to figure it out. And he can figure it out because it's in him, because the first 3 months of the year, he was a totally different guy. In June, 11 innings pitched, 6 hits, only 3 runs. In May, 13 innings pitched, only 9 hits, 3 runs. In April, almost just under 11 innings pitched, 4 hits, only 1 earned run. And his March outing, he didn't give up a run either. The little bit of March and April, May, June, only 7 earned runs over the course of just over 3 months. In July, he's given up twice as many. He's given up 14 runs. So you could say, oh, we're back to what reality is. The first 3 months weren't reality. July's the real Tommy Kahnle. That's the Tommy Kahnle we're going to get the rest of the year. I don't see that as true. I see he's had 4 really bad outings in the month of July, but he played another 3 months there. So I think that he's still got it in him. He can still figure it out. But this is after yesterday's outing is the first time where I went, oof, or sorry, after Friday's outing is the first time I kind of got a little nervous. 2 before that, and the one earlier in July, I wrote off as no big deal. But now it does scare me a little bit. Tommy's got to get that figured out, because without him in the bullpen, we're in a tough spot. So that kind of wraps up the Tommy Kahnle and then the Friday night game. Into Saturday, Cater Montero starts, night game. Montero doesn't do great. He gets these weird spot starts. I kind of feel for him. He doesn't have a normal schedule, and so he's down in Toledo, gets called up, or then he's on the main roster for a bit with the Tigers, but then he might have a game where there's an opener, and then he comes in the second, or he's an opener and comes in after there's 1 out already in the second. I like it when he gets a chance to actually start, which he did on Saturday. Not a great outing, 4 1/3 innings pitched, 4 hits, 4 runs. Gives up that big home run, right? That ball gets crushed to right center field, 3-run homer. Gives up another run later. That's all the scoring that's given up. The good news there is the bullpen comes in and does great. Get Hannafy, Herter, and Hernandez come in, a total of 3 2/3 innings pitched. No hits, no runs. Again, with that outing, with Holton and Chase Lee the night before, that's almost 6 innings between those 5 guys with no hits and no runs. So while we do get worried about the bullpen and think the bullpen needs help, which I'll talk about a little bit later, there are guys in there that can get outs. Not a lot of strikeouts, which you'd like to have, but they get outs. Do we have a little slip here and there? And has Tommy Candy not been great? Sure, but there was an opportunity in that bullpen, I think, to be just fine if that's what we need them to do. How did the offense do in that game? Not great. Only 3 hits combined. Wenzel Perez 1 for 3. Riley Green 1 for 4 with that home run late in the game that shocked a little bit of hope into us, but that was it. Matt Vierling had another hit that day, so he's the only one with hits in both games. 3 hits on Saturday, 4 hits on Friday, 7 hits total in 2 games. Not what we want to see. We got to get this figured out. Tarek Skubal on the mound tonight, Sunday Night Baseball. By the time this has been released, we'll know the outcomes. I'm recording this Sunday afternoon. It'll be out Monday morning, and I look forward tonight to watching the game. Hopefully, Tarek's able to repeat the start he had the last time on Sunday Night Baseball, where he was just an absolute shutdown stud. I'm a little nervous. I guess I'll get this on tape now ahead of time because the week's been a weird week. When his days get thrown off in between starts, the start's not great. That happened, his last start before the All-Star game. They rushed him up a start so that he'd be able to start the All-Star game. That game didn't go well. And then he's only got, 3 days off in between that and the All-Star game. All-Star game start didn't go great. And so now, even though he only threw 1 inning, we've only got, this is the 5th day after that. So you had Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday off, and the 5th day is now Sunday, and he started. Before the game, I'm a little more nervous than I was the last time he had this Sunday night opportunity because when he's able to be that creature of habit and have his routine for every single day in between starts, he's the Tarek Skubal we all know and love. When something gets thrown off on those days, something is a little off for him in the game. But I hope that's not the case tonight. Hope he goes out there and he's able to be the Tarek Skubal that everyone loves to see. And we get a nice amount of people watching that game again, and they see the Tigers salvage a win in Texas before they head off to Pittsburgh. As far as kind of the trade stuff, right? Trade deadline's coming up for the Tigers or for all of baseball here at the end of the month. And there's kind of 3 positions I've heard talked about that might be something the Tigers need to look at. Starting pitching's kind of an outlier. I've heard that a little bit. I even heard some dreaming months ago when there was already talk of the Pirates trading Paul Skeens because they're just giving up on trying to re-sign him already. Maybe the Tigers go after him and have a Paul Skeens, Tarek Skubal, 2-headed beyond monster. That's awesome to dream about. I just don't think it's a reality. We're already nervous about not re-signing Tarek Skubal. Why would we go get another guy that we're not going to re-sign? That doesn't make much sense. And I just don't think we need a starting pitcher. Yeah, Jackson Jobe going down isn't great. Alex Cobb just never coming back from injury isn't great. But, we've got 4 great starters. And in the playoffs, that's all you need. You don't need a 5th starter. So in the playoffs, we've got Tarek Skubal and Casey Mize and Jack Flaherty and Reese Olson, who I think can do more than hold their own. We're not going to have bullpen days and opener days and that sort of thing in the playoffs like we had to mess around with last year. So starting pitching, I don't think is necessary. As far as relief pitching goes, bullpen help, that's something. The Tigers currently have the 11th best ERA in the American League. There's only 15 teams in the American League. So they're in the bottom third of bullpen ERA, which hurts. And like we said earlier, there's not a lot of strikeout guys in that bullpen. And strikeouts are great to get, so you don't have to worry about a ball just barely finding grass or getting between someone's legs or bouncing off someone's glove. A strikeout here or there at the end of that game is real nice to see. And we don't have a lot of strikeout guys coming out of that Tigers bullpen. Adding a little bit of help there might be nice. But at what cost? A month ago, Chapman was the big talk out of Boston. Oh, that maybe that'd be something we would go for. But Boston's really kind of righted the ship. They're competitive now. They're, especially the AL East with the Yankees going on a bit of a drought lately, or a bit of a rough stretch. Boston's not going to be sellers. So Alex Bregman's not going anywhere. Chapman's not going anywhere. They traded the one guy away that I think they thought were weighing them down, and they're fine now. So where we're going to get relief help is going to be tough. I think the relief help can come from within. I mentioned this last episode. Dylan Smith is still down in Toledo. I mentioned last episode 1.38 ERA. Carlos Hernandez, they talked about last night's game or Saturday night's game, that as long as he's found in the strike zone, he's great. He can throw 100 miles an hour. He's got a great split finger. He can be something phenomenal. I think as the Tigers, he's had a couple bad outings, but that's something that I think can get tied up to where he could be a strikeout guy. 100 miles an hour with a splitter. Yeah, that could be something great there. So relief pitching might be something where we can solve that from within. We've got the guys that kind of just have to figure it out. Third base is the huge elephant in the room, right? That's the thing that we've wanted since the offseason. We went into the offseason thinking we've got to get third base figured out. We made it work with Matt Vierling last year, but Vierling kind of played all over the place, ended up mostly at third because that's where we had a hole. Andy Ibanez would come in against left-handed pitching, but Jace Young didn't play during the playoffs. I think we all hoped Jace Young would win that position in spring training. Didn't happen. Tigers made a real push for Alex Bregman. That didn't work. So we kind of went into the start of the season thinking, well, if Andy Ibanez and Javi Baez maybe play third. Well, then it ended up where Javi gets moved to center. Zach starts getting more time at third. And that's worked out well because Vierling was hurt, so Vierling couldn't play that in position, and Zach has done a great job at third base. But I think it is becoming apparent there needs to be another bat. Well, we have weekends like this where, you don't score runs and you don't get hits. The Tigers need to pick up a bat. And even last year, the big thing is they need a big right-handed bat. That was the one thing I really wanted them to land during the offseason was even if it's not a position player, bring someone in that can just mash right-handed. And Torkelson has given us a bit of that because he's had such a resurgence this year. And Javi Baez having a resurgence this year has been great. Those are two guys that were kind of written off in the offseason, so we thought we didn't have any right-handed hitting. But the big obvious one is the Eugenio Suarez deal. He came out this past week saying he'd love to return to the Tigers. Well, obviously, it's a first-place team. Why wouldn't you love to return there? But he's hitting 254, 33 home runs, 81 RBI, a 911 OPS. And so that is a great hitter. I've been really the one saying I don't want a third baseman over and over. Zach McKinstry's our third baseman. Zach McKinstry's an all-star. It's not that I want to replace a third baseman. I like the idea of getting the other bat. And so if the bat we can get is Eugenio Suarez and he can go to third base, Zach McKinstry has options. He can move to right. He can play left. He can play another infield position. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw is if Zach McKinstry becomes our everyday right fielder, Suarez gets traded for, we get him at third. Vierling ends up in center more, and we might see a scenario in which Parker Meadows and Kerry Carpenter aren't on the team or aren't playing a lot of innings. Now, Kerry Carpenter's injured right now. He's dealing with the hamstring, so he can't get traded until he's healthy, right? He can't pass a physical. So I kind of saw a scenario where maybe they trade Kerry Carpenter for Suarez, and, some other pieces to make it work. I know a lot of guys are after Suarez. The Yankees want Suarez. The Mariners want Suarez. But I think the Tigers have the deepest system to trade for a guy like that. Now, they're not going to trade Clark. They're not going to trade McGonigal. They're not going to trade those guys. But we've got, Jace Young, Justin Henry Malloy, Andy Ibanez, Kerry Carpenter, Parker Meadows, Wenzel Perez, Trey Sweeney, Jahmai Jones. We have all these guys that, another team might find interesting, especially a lot of guys making almost no money. So you trade that, has some years of team control. We're going to get Suarez on an expiring contract as his last year. I could see the Tigers, if the Tigers want to do it, the Tigers have the assets to make it happen. And you could have a lineup that's Riley Green, Matt Vierling, Zach McKinstry in the outfield, Suarez, Javi, Glaber, and Torque in the infield, Dylan catching, Colt DHing, and that list of guys I just mentioned is filling. So you got Wenzel Perez you keep around. You've got Andy Ibanez still in the system, Trey Sweeney, Jahmai Jones. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Tigers made a move that involved trading Kerry Carpenter because another team's gonna really like that bat and we can fill that hole. I was saying to a friend the other day, Colt Keith and Kerry Carpenter are basically the same hitter in that AJ Hinch doesn't like either of them to hit against left-handed pitching. They were both kind of filling in as leadoff hitters at some point and not your normal leadoff hitter because they hit the ball hard, they get on base, and they're left-handed. I don't know that we need both of them in the lineup. They're both going to get pinch hit for if a left-handed pitcher comes in. So do we need two of those guys? I love Kerry Carpenter. I'm the one saying all the time, I love our team. I want our team to be the team that goes into October. I don't love the idea of trading any of our guys. So I'd love a scenario in which Kerry Carpenter comes back healthy, just starts crushing the ball again. Colton's still there. Zach McKinstry's bouncing on at every single position every time someone needs an off day. So he's still getting 4 or 5 starts a week. And we still find a way to land that third baseman. But Parker Meadows has been struggling. Kerry Carpenter's injured. We've got to find something to pick up this team. It's a broken looking team right now. 6 games in a row. I was getting swept before the All-Star break. Not great. I really thought we'd come out on fire this week. Okay, we lost Friday. All right, that's fine. You don't hit for a game. That's okay. I thought they'd come out Saturday and win. I'm like, oh gosh, we haven't won a game in 9 days. So even me, the constant optimist when it comes to the Tigers, and the Tigers are fine. The Tigers are great. even I'm starting to get a little nervous thinking, what are we gonna do? Like this can't go on forever. So does a 6-game losing streak turn into a 7-game losing streak? I really hope not. A lot of stuff going on with the Tigers. Overall, still super happy, still super optimistic. Has it been the best week? Obviously not. But we've got Terry Skubal on the mound tonight. Still have the best team in the American League. Yeah, they've dropped a half a game behind the Cubs for best record in all of baseball. But all the other big teams are slipping right now too. Dodgers haven't been great the last 10. Yankees haven't been great the last 10. And those are the two World Series teams that everyone thinks are probably the favorites again heading into this year. So it's just a bad stretch for the good teams, except for the Cubs. Cubs are still on fire. But we beat them in a series earlier in the year, so that's okay too. I do think we're going to be fine. Bad July. Let's turn the calendar here in a couple weeks. We go into August on fire like we did last year. Finish strong in August and September. Get the #1 seed in the playoffs and roll through October. So that's going to wrap up our Tigers talk for now. We're going to take a quick break here. On the other side of the break, we're going to do a quick recap of Pistons Summer League, how that turned out, what we might have learned from Summer League. And then later in today's episode, we'll talk about the start of Lions training camp and what's already happening as far as injuries go. We'll talk about all that and more right after this break. You're listening to the Motor City Sports Podcast. Hello and welcome back to the Motor City Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Lee Moserak, and thank you again for being along with me on this ride. The first part of today's show, we talked about the Tigers, how the second half of the season started not so great. But again, I'm going to stay optimistic pretty much all the time. So I'm still feeling pretty good with the Tigers. We're going to be just fine. Now we're going to dive into the Pistons Summer League. I had this to talk about a bit the last episode, but it went a little long talking about the Home Run Derby, the All-Star Game, and doing a bit of a Tigers preview. We're just finishing up now with Pistons Summer League, and I think it went okay. The team went 3-2. Ron Holland had a great start to Summer League. Really appeared as though he didn't really belong there. And so the first 3 games, he was on fire, looking great. Chaz Lanier was okay. He had 10, 15 points for most of those games. And then Jenkins was the other big one that was really kind of trying to make a push to make the team. It really seemed like Ron Holland obviously is going to be on the actual Pistons roster next year. Chaz Lanier will likely be a really far down the bench guy, might not get a lot of playing time, but I'm sure he'll be around. Other than that, the other guys from the Summer League team probably are not going to be on the Pistons roster. Maybe they do something to earn another roster spot, but not the Pistons. So we're going to talk about that a little bit, preview Thursday's game against the Heat, but we didn't get to that. So now what I want to do is kind of recap all of it. The last 2 games of Summer League, Ron Holland didn't play, which is funny because we talked in the first couple of games how he looked like someone who shouldn't be playing in Summer League, that he was kind of above that level. And I think the Pistons saw enough the first few games, and then he did not play the final 2 games. And so those games were a little less fun. The Thursday night game against the Heat, the team did win 108-88. Chaz Lanier only had, I think, 5 points. Jenkins had 16 points. So the other guys that we know a little less about did well that game. And then wrapping things up on Saturday night, they lost to the Spurs 96-84. So they finished Summer League 3-2. I think what are the takeaways from that? What do we learn from Summer League? Well, we learned that Ron Holland is the real deal. So he was 7 for 15 on 3-pointers throughout Summer League, those 3 games he played, which is great. We need the shooters, as we've talked about before. Losing Malik Beasley, losing Tim Hardaway Jr., that could be a problem, but getting Duncan Robinson back in a trade is a great shooter to have. That's the goal, I think, long-term with Chaz Lanier, to be a shooter that Cade can kick the ball out to. And so then seeing Ron perform as well as he did in Summer League, knowing if we put him in, he's going to make some shots as well. That was a great thing to learn from Summer League. Other thing we're kind of in the middle of learning is Chaz Lanier. So is he going to be the real deal? Or as far as, is he going to be a guy that makes the squad and sees any kind of minutes? He had a couple games in Summer League where he looked great, double-digit points, 14 points, 16 points, somewhere around in there. Didn't finish great, 5 points, 11 points in the games that Ron didn't play. Would have liked to have seen him take that opportunity to step up and maybe make a bigger impact in those couple of games. But we didn't see it yet, and that's okay. He's still a young guy. He's still got some learning to do, and he's with a great team to do that. There's guys on this team that can fill that spot. He doesn't need to come in and be the man. So we're not in a situation where we drafted him first overall and we're depending on him to come in and be a starter and score 20 points a game. He's getting drafted to a team that's already established. Our starting five is absolutely established. Our first 3 or 4 guys off the bench is absolutely established. And so he can come in and be that 10th or 11th guy, get minutes when they're there, learn, get better, improve, and then maybe down the stretch of next season, he ends up playing more of an important role. But I saw enough during Summer League as a whole just to be excited. We ended the season so disappointing in the playoffs. Again, very happy to have the playoff run. I'm not mad at anyone in that organization for how the season ended. It's just a bummer, right? Every team ends in a bummer situation except for one. One team gets to win the whole thing. Everyone else's season ends with a loss, and you're kind of, ugh. And that's kind of how it was with that Pistons playoff run. Kind of thought there was a real good chance they were going to steal that from the Knicks and move on from there, and it just didn't happen. So it was nice to see the team out there again, a team out there again representing the Pistons, playing basketball, giving us something, a little bit of a teaser to look forward to for this fall and winter when Pistons basketball picks back up. So that's kind of where I land on Summer League. Pivoting from that, let's talk about the Lions. Lions started training camp this weekend. They start early, right? They got that July 31st Hall of Fame game against the Chargers. So the Lions rookies were kind of in camp a few days ago. Full squad in camp now. One thing I had to talk about last episode we didn't get to was the Tate Ratledge contract debacle. So second round pick Tate Ratledge, there was a lot of drama because a couple of the earlier second round picks got guaranteed contracts. And that's unheard of for these second round guys to get fully guaranteed contracts. So then the rest of the second round guys saw, wait a minute, if they're getting guaranteed contracts, we want guaranteed contracts. And so there was this big lull. No one was signing contracts because the players are thinking, wow, guaranteed's an option. And the team was saying, no, we're not doing guaranteed contracts. And so finally, before the weekend, that the dam broke. Team players started signing for regular contracts, not demanding these fully guaranteed anymore. We get the contract signed with Tate. We get him into camp, which is great because we need him. We drafted him for a reason. Became even more of a reason once Frank Ragnow kind of retired on a surprise. I hope that Dan and Brad knew that was a real significant possibility. And so that might be part of why they took Tate with the goal of moving him over to center. And that seems to be the plan right now. He's getting the starter reps at center already in training camp. Graham Glasgow, we thought would share a little bit of that, but for right now, he's moved over to right guard, and Christian is over at left guard. And so that's kind of our line right now. It's a little scary. The Detroit Lions line has been dominant for years, right? Just moving bodies everywhere against their will. And now, we lose Zeitler to free agency. We lose Frank to retirement. A couple other guys are a little older here. It just makes you a little nervous as to what we're going to see as this goes. I think Taylor Decker, he's going to be back just after the Hall of Fame game. Dan Skipper is there to kind of help out a little bit. But the line's a little more banged up. And even Dan said that during press conferences this weekend. Said the thing he's watching the most is the offensive line. Because that has been something we knew we could count on for the last couple years. And we need to see it this year. We need to see a young guy in Tate Ratledge step in and really take over the middle of that line. We have to see Graham be okay moving over to right guard and do his job there. Christian moving in, do his job there. On the outsides, I'm okay. Yeah, Taylor Decker is hurt right now, or he's taking a little bit of time to come back. He'll be fine. Panay's going to be great. Outside, not worried about. But that interior offensive line where we need them just to move defenders back to give our guys a place to go, give Montgomery a place to go, Gibbs a place to go. We need that offensive line to be clicking on all cylinders. A couple of things we saw: Ennis Rakestraw, left Predis with a chest injury. Not great. We're really needing him for that defensive secondary. Losing Carlton Davis to free agency. It's not the deepest of positions for us. Obviously, we have 2 studs at safety and Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch. Not worried about that. Terrion Arnold, great cornerback. I think another year of experience under his belt. He got flagged quite a bit last year, but he was targeted in man, I think, more than any other corner in the league. And so there's going to be more opportunity for him to pick up a handsy foul here or there, illegal contact or a little bit of holding or pass interference. But another year of experience, I think we'll see less of that. I think Terrion Arnold's going to be great. Get Amik Robertson again, and then DJ Reed's obviously going to be the other starting corner. But Amik Robertson, we can't forget the day he just put Justin Jefferson locked down. That he went in there thinking Jefferson was going to have the game of his life, and he did not. Robertson shut him down. And so having him on the team, too, we still have the 4 good cornerbacks there, which is great. The rest of it, Levi Onwuzurike's ACL surgery out for the year. Not the best news to hear. We're looking forward to getting all these defensive guys back that were injured last year, and to already find out we've got one out for the year. Not a great start. Aleem McNeil and Malcolm Rodriguez still coming back from injuries. They're not going to be ready until September, so Aleem McNeil may not even be ready for the first game, which I don't love to see that. I was kind of looking forward to getting him back, pushing up the middle, a Hutch back coming from the outside, and kind of wreaking havoc on guys. And then we've got the whole Alex Anzalone situation where he was there. Dan said that he performed great in his conditioning drills and all that was great, but he didn't practice. And Dan's been really coy about it, saying, oh, it's not a contract issue. But all signs kind of point to it being a contract issue. It's the last year of his contract, 3 years, $18 million. He knows he's the leader, or as far as a captain goes of that defense. I think Alex knows how important he is to the development of Jack Campbell. And I don't think Alex wants to see himself get replaced by Jack Campbell. Malcolm Rodriguez is going to be out. We need a happy, prepared, excited Alex Anzalone on that field. And I think he knows that. And so I think it's a situation where he's maybe taking a day or two off. He's going to show up so we can't get fined, but he's not looking to practice any more than he has to. He's definitely not looking to get hurt before the season starts. And so that's something the Lions have to be careful of. The Lions have done a great job of kind of taking care of their own. A lot of these guys are getting big contracts, and that's kind of what Brad has said in the past when we've had some money going into the offseason and some fans think, oh, we're going to get a bunch of guys, we're going to sign a bunch of free agents. And Brad says, no, this money is to pay our own guys, right? Like Amon-Ra St. Brown deserved a contract. And so we're taking care of our guys. We're going to have the Hutchinson deal coming up here soon. So taking care of our guys. And I think Alex Anzalone has seen that and said, well, what about me? Like I think he took a bit of a discount, hometown discount on this last contract because he had faith in Dan Campbell, had faith in what this team was doing. He probably could have gone somewhere else, maybe gotten a little bit more money, been on a different team, but he stuck around with the Lions, and I think he knows he wants a little bit more protection as he's going into this season. He doesn't want to get himself hurt and doesn't want to play for under market value. And that'd be great if they could find a happy medium and a way to get him paid, make him feel whole, get him back on the field. So we have a nice, happy, ready to be there Alex Anzalone come the regular season. But it's early. It's mid-July. We have the extra preseason game, 4 preseason games this year with the Hall of Fame game. So there's some time until September when these games actually mean something. Right now, guys want to get out there, get moving around, and not get injured. It's kind of the main, especially when it comes to that defense. But I think it's going to be great. I'm excited to see the teams out there. Excited to see the Lions back. Excited to see these Dan Campbell press conferences again. Never a dull moment with him. That just makes me feel excited for football and excited to see our guys back out there. So I'll be tuned into that Hall of Fame game on July 31st. As pointless as it may be, knowing that almost none of our starters are actually going to play, but just to see the Lions back out there is going to be great. I've been watching that quarterback series. I mentioned that a couple episodes ago. I'm 2 episodes in now. And it's so cool to see the Jared Goff story develop, and makes me that much more excited that he's our quarterback. And I know the season didn't end as well last year, and I was kind of worried after that Washington game that we might not hear the Jared Goff chants at random concerts and basketball games and baseball games throughout the year. But watching that and kind of reliving Jared Goff and how the dog that he's been for us, the animal he's been, that motor he's been for this team. I'm excited. I love that Jared Goff's our quarterback. I think we made out real well in that Matthew Stafford deal. And I love Stafford. I wasn't excited to get rid of him. I was happy for him to go win his Super Bowl, but I think we got back as good of a guy as you could possibly have wanted to get back. So that's going to about do it. We're about out of time here today. We talked about the Tigers, talked about the Pistons briefly, talked about the Lions kind of getting ready for the regular season here. These summer episodes are obviously going to be more Tigers heavy because that's the 6 games a week, a lot going on with the Tigers. So that's going to wrap it up for now. Again, I want to remind everyone to like and subscribe wherever you're listening to this. So if you're on YouTube, like the episode, please subscribe to the channel. If you're on Apple Podcasts, if you're on Spotify, give us 5 stars. Go ahead and subscribe. Tell a friend. Try to get this in front of as many people as we can. Once I cross that 10 episode barrier, I'm going to start looking to get interviews on throughout the week. So that's the plan. I wanted to get 10 done first with just me talking to you. and then we'll start talking to some great interview candidates as we get moving further from there. So for now, we're going to sign off. I'm going to get ready to watch Tarek Skubal on ESPN tonight, hopefully mow down some Texas Rangers, and hopefully when we're listening to this on Monday morning, I don't sound like a fool for saying that. Thank you again for listening to the Motor City Sports Podcast. We will be back on Thursday. Have a great week, everyone.